Condensation. Condensation is the process by which water vapor in the air is changed into liquid water. The water which collects as droplets on a cold surface when humid air is in contact with it. You have seen it everywhere. In other words, the water in the air is a gas known as water vapor. Condensation is the transformation of water vapor into liquid water. This is the opposite of evaporation. Evaporation is when a gas turns into liquid and heat energy is lost in this process. An example of this can be the water droplets on the surface of a glass full of ice cold water. When water vapor formed from evaporation comes in contact with the cold surface, it loses energy and gets converted into water. Evaporate. Evaporate means to cause a liquid to change to a gas, especially by heating. Evaporation. Evaporation can generally be defined as a process by which a liquid is transformed into vapor. Evaporation is a form of vaporization that usually happens on the surface of liquids, and it involves the transition of the liquid particles into the gaseous phase. That is why this process is said to involve a change in the state of matter of liquids. Precipitation. Precipitation is water released from clouds in the form of rain, freezing rain, sleet, snow, or hail. Precipitation is the main way atmospheric water returns to the surface of the earth. Most of the precipitation falls as rain. In science, precipitation is the process behind the condensation of water vapor in the atmosphere that falls down under the influence of gravity. Rain and snow are the results of these phenomena. The water cycle. There are four major steps in the water cycle. The first one is evaporation of water, then condensation, then precipitation, and lastly collection. Water cycle. The water cycle is a biogeochemical cycle that involves the continuous movement of water on, above, and below the surface of the earth. The sun evaporates water and contributes to the formation of water vapor. These water vapors accumulate in the atmosphere as clouds. The vapors condense into water droplets, and when enough droplets come together, it falls out of the clouds as rain or snow. Getting started. You will need a glass of water and paper towel. Dip your finger into the water. Make a wet spot onto the paper with your finger. Leave the paper for a few minutes, and then pick up the piece of paper. Scientific inquiry. It's observing over time. Is the paper wet or dry? It's dry. What did you do to help get rid of the water? The paper towel for drying. Now, if the water is not on the paper, where did the water go? The water evaporated. How can what you observed be helpful to people? This helps people to understand evaporation of water from surface, and this is a scientific inquiry observing over time. Now, here are a few questions related to the topic. If you're able to answer these questions correctly, then that's good. And if you aren't, then please check the video once again to find the definitions of each one of these keywords. This is very important, so try to answer them correctly. The first question is what is evaporation? The second is what is water cycle? What is precipitation? And what do you mean by condensation? Match the words with their meanings. The words are evaporation, condensation, precipitation, water cycle, and their meanings are given on the other column. Here is the correct answer. Evaporation means a process by which a liquid is transformed into vapor. Condensation means water which collects as droplets on the cold surface when humid air is in contact with it. Precipitation means the process behind the condensation of water vapor in the atmosphere that falls down under the influence of gravity. Water cycle's definition is evaporation of water, then condensation, precipitation, and then collection. The first topic is evaporation. When water and other liquids become warm enough, they change into gas. For example, when you heat water, water vapors evaporate. In short, the water becomes gas. When particles in the liquid change into gas, we say that the liquid evaporates, like a puddle drying up or the washed clothes getting dry. The particle model of evaporation. Evaporation happens when some particles in the liquid gain heat energy. The heated particles start to move faster and move further apart. Eventually, the heated particles move so far apart that they escape from the surface of the liquid into the surrounding air. When a liquid evaporates, it changes from a liquid state to a gas state. So, a liquid, when it's given heat, changes into gas. Now, here's an activity. You will need two identical glasses, water, a permanent marker, a measuring cup or cylinder. Now measure and pour 100 ml of water into both the glasses. Mark the level of water in the glasses with a permanent marker. Put one glass in a warm place and place the other glass in a cooler place. Leave the glasses for 2 days. Predict the results you expect to obtain. Now say why you made this prediction. Mark the level of water in both the glasses after 2 days. Now here are a few questions to answer. Was the water level in the two glasses the same after 2 days? No. Which glass had the most water and which glass had the least water after 2 days? And was your prediction right? The glass kept in the cool place has the most water. And yes, use the particle model to explain your observation. The particles move at such a speed that they are able to leave the liquid. Suggest a way you can improve the investigation to find out how much water evaporated from both the glasses. You can use it to find out by measuring the amount of water before and after. Why does washing dry quicker on a hot and sunny day? This is because evaporation is faster during summers. The next topic is condensation. You can try this activity. Breathe onto your hand and now check whether the breath feels warm or cold. Next, try breathing onto a window pane or a mirror. What do you observe? And why do you think this happens? The air breath onto your hand is warm, while the air breath on the window pane or mirror is cold. This is because the warm, moist air meets the cold window. It rapidly cools down, losing its capacity to retain the moisture, resulting in the condensation of water droplets or frost on the glass. Now, why do you think this happens? This is because the water vapor in your breath condenses on the glass. The air you breathe out is warm. When the warm air touches a cooler surface like the mirror, it cools down. If the surface is cold enough, the water vapor gas changes to drops of liquid water. This process is called condensation. It's exactly the reverse of evaporation. The particle theory states that condensation happens when the particles of a gas lose energy, when they get cooler. This makes them slow down and move closer together to become a liquid. The opposite happens in evaporation, where the particles move further apart because of the heat energy, while over here the energy is lost and they get cooler. Because of that, they move closer together. Now, here's an activity. You will need two identical glasses, ice, water, a measuring cup, and a cloth. Look at the picture to see how to set up your investigation. Wipe both the glasses with a cloth. Leave the glasses for 15 minutes and then observe them. Make label drawings of your observations. Condensation activities involve three types of variables. The first one is independent variable. This is the variable that you change in the experiment. The second one is dependent variable. This is the variable you measure or observe. The third one is controlled variable. This is the variable you keep constant to ensure a fair test. The first question is, which variable did you observe or measure? It was the amount of water that condenses on the surface. Now, what type of variable was this? It was a dependent variable. Which variables did you keep the same? It was the glass. So this is called a controlled variable. Which variable did you change? It was the temperature, because we changed the temperature of the water, normal water and cold ice water. What type of variable was this? It was an independent variable. Was this a fair test? Say why or why not. It was a fair test because of the controlled variable. Use the particle model to explain your observations, and condensation is a reverse of evaporation. So explain why this is. Here's an activity you could do. Make a flowchart to show the different changes of state of matter. Use the words in the box: gas, solid, liquid, melting, freezing, condensation, and evaporation. For each of these changes of state, state whether heating or cooling happens. For melting, heating takes place. For freezing, cooling takes place. For condensation, it's cooling, and for evaporation, it's heating. Here is the flow chart. Solid turns into liquid by melting, which is a heating process. Liquid changes into gas by boiling or evaporation, which is also heating. However, the gas changes into liquid which is condensation, that's cooling, and liquid changes into solid by freezing, which also comes under cooling. The water cycle. The water cycle happens because of two processes. The first one is evaporation and the second is condensation. Melting and freezing can also happen in the water cycle. The rain and snow that you see fall from clouds onto the earth are called precipitation. Sometimes balls of ice, which is called hail, also falls from the clouds. In the water cycle, water moves from the land and sea to the air and back again to the land. Now here are a few questions. Where does the heat come from and make water evaporate from rivers, lakes, and seas? It's from the sun. Where else on the drawing given here does the evaporation happen? Evaporation can happen from the surface of the leaves, which is called transpiration. Where does the evaporated water go? The evaporated water forms the clouds. What happens to water vapor when it condenses? The water vapor forms clouds. Where does the evaporated water get back to earth? The evaporated water gets back to earth in the form of rain. Where in the water cycle does freezing happen and melting happen? Both these processes happen in the clouds. The clouds are formed by freezing of water, while the rain is the melting of the clouds. Where in the drawing does this happen? You can see the clouds in the picture. Now here's a task for you. Complete these sentences about the water cycle. Use the words in the box to help you. Here's the answer for the previous question. Water on the Earth's surface evaporates and moves up in the air as water vapor. The water vapor cools and condenses as it rises into the air. Rain, snow, and hail are forms of precipitation that bring water back to the Earth's surface. Now here's an important question. Why is the water cycle important to us? The first advantage of the water cycle is that it enables the availability of water for all living organisms. It regulates weather patterns on our planet, distributes water across the different regions, supports ecosystems, biodiversity, and maintains the balance of Earth's systems, plays a significant role in regulating the temperature and climate pattern. You can watch this video on Make a Model on Water Cycle, which will help you better understand this concept of water cycle. Making a model representing the water cycle. For this, you will need a glass bowl, a small dish which will fit inside the bowl, clear plastic wrap, and a small stone. Firstly, place the dish inside the bowl and then pour some water into the bowl around the dish. The water should be about 1 centimeter deep. Make sure that there are no splashes of water into the dish. Now put the plastic wrap over the bowl and stick it down. Put a small stone on the plastic. Leave the bowl outside in a warm, sunny place for a few hours. The setup should look something like this, as shown in the video. These are a few questions in relation to the water cycle model. Describe what you observed in your model after a few hours. The observations could be condensation. the water droplets forming on the cling film or plastic wrap covering your model. This represents the condensation process where water vapor cools and turns back into liquid. Precipitation. Some of these droplets might fall back into the bowl or container, mimicking rain. Evaporation. The water level in the bowl might have decreased slightly, indicating that some water has evaporated. Why did this happen? The observations occur due to the processes involved in the water cycle. Evaporation. The heat from the sun or the heat source causes the water to evaporate, turning it into water vapor. Condensation. As the water vapor rises and cools, it condenses into tiny droplets, forming clouds or, in your model, droplets on the cling film. Precipitation. When these droplets become heavy enough, they fall back as precipitation or rain. See how your model shows the different parts and processes in the water cycle. Our water cycle model demonstrates the following parts and processes. Evaporation. The water in the bowl represents the water bodies present on the earth, for example, lakes, rivers, oceans, or seas. When this water heats up, it evaporates, turning into water vapor. The second process is condensation. The cling film or plastic wrap acts like the atmosphere. As the water vapor rises and cools down, it condenses into droplets on the cling film. Precipitation. The droplets on the cling film eventually fall back into the bowl, acting as the rain. Collection. The water that falls back into the bowl represents how water collects in the rivers, lakes, and oceans. Questions. What is dissolving? Can all solids dissolve? How do we know if a solid has dissolved? Name the two parts of a solution. Give an example of each of the two parts. Why is a solution a mixture? Why is water sometimes called a universal solvent? Why can't we sometimes see water pollution? Name two soluble substances that cause water pollution. Name two insoluble substances that cause water pollution. How do you think that the use of pesticide affects the environment? You can try answering all these questions after watching the entire video, and please refer the video once again if you cannot answer any one of these questions. Here are the answers for the first four questions. What is dissolving? To become or cause to become incorporated into a liquid so as to form a solution. Can all solids dissolve? No, all solids cannot dissolve. How do we know if a solid has dissolved? There are no traces of solute left in solvent. The solution must be in a uniform appearance or homogeneous mixture. Name the two parts of a Give an example of each of the two parts. Salt is solute and solvent is water. Why is solution a mixture? Dissolving is a type of mixing because when a solid dissolves, it mixes with the liquid. We call this mixture a solution. Why is water sometimes called a universal solvent? That is because water can dissolve much more substances than any other liquid found in nature, but water cannot dissolve every substance. Here are the answers for the last four questions. Why can't we sometimes see the water pollution? Water sometimes is contaminated by fertilizers or pesticides which cannot be seen with our naked eyes because they get dissolved in the water. Name two soluble substances that cause water pollution. It's pesticides and fertilizers. Name two insoluble substances that can cause water pollution: plastic and oil. How do you think that the use of pesticides affect environment? They kill the important pollinators. The best known pollinators are honeybees, which fly from flower to flower, releasing pollen. They disrupt the food chain and essential ecosystems. They kill soil and degrade the nutritional content of food. They contaminate the water supply, and they're also bad for farm workers.